Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Nursing Uncharted. It's a new year, and I am so excited for today's guest because she's been here before, and that episode rocked. And I just know this one's going to hit even harder. So, welcome back. Someone who I can now call a friend, Miss Laurel. You brought so much positivity, so much energy. I just want to live in your brain because you just have this way of looking at everything and just finding the most beautiful meaning and outlook, and you just are very inspiring to me. So I
Oh,
know you've inspired the listeners. So I almost feel like we should share the little story about how we actually met in person for the first time before we dive into our conversation. But I just
100%.
because I
Yeah.
can't believe that it happened the
Yeah.
way that it did.
Yeah. You live in San Diego. I live
Yeah.
in San Diego. I knew the area of town you lived in. I had no idea where you actually lived. So I was going to this part of town and I went there. And for those that don't live in Southern California, parking is a whole phenomenon. So I was circling around trying to find a place to park. As I'm walking up this way towards my car, there's a human being coming out of her house, her
Yeah.
apartment. But so it's to the point where we literally came face to face,
Yeah.
like on the sidewalk. And we both kind of did one of these, okay. And then I'm, moving my car and it's like, this girl looks like she's moving. I don't know. And then we sort of like both turned around and you walk back and you're like, are you Laurel? And I was like, wait, what is happening? And I love because you looked at me and you're like, why are you outside of my house? And I was like, why are you moving? It was just, but it was one of those moments where 10
Yeah.
seconds in either direction
Yes.
and our eyes wouldn't have met. Oh,
That was the craziest
yeah.
way to ever meet
Yeah.
someone.
The thing I love about that is there's these moments, I think, in life, moments like that remind me that and this kind of goes to the quote that we were just talking about that I
Yeah.
love. Life is what happens when you're busy making plans.
Yes.
And there are these moments that happen in life that are so like, I'm a planner. I love my plans. I could not script this.
Basically relating this all back to what we do. We're both nurses
Yeah.
and, we're both travel nurses. I talked about this in my welcome to 2026
Hmm.
episode. Travel nursing can be lonely. And it's just those little
Yeah.
reminders and those little things that sometimes we have to look for that keeps us happy and keeps our
Yeah.
cup filled because what we do is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And this kind of also ties in with some of the things we were chatting about before about this concept of kind of self-identity.
Yeah,
The idea we have of who we are, and
yeah,
then life throwing something at us. And sometimes it's a miracle. Sometimes it's, what? It's those moments where you're thinking, oh my gosh, life, you're amazing. And sometimes it's things that are so hard that you're like, I can't believe that you, life, think that I could actually withstand this
yeah,
because this is not possible. I feel like since we talked last time, there's been this arc in my life where I was sort of like, oh, I'm wonder walking. And that was a term I used where I would literally
yes,
just travel to different cities. And my goal was, I was like, I'm going to leave the house and I'm going to walk around until I find something that brings me a sense of wonder.
yeah,
And, it didn't take long for me also because there was this newness. And then I've come back to San Diego, in brief, my mom was having some health challenges. She's fine. Everything's fine. But, there was, for me, I think I had this, I didn't realize until I came back here how much of who I thought I was based on the way that I'd externally created my life
yeah,
in the sense of like, oh, I'm a wonder walker and I do this and I do that. And that's just who
yeah,
I'm just gonna, and I'm da 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 da
yeah,
da da. And then all that goes away. And you're, like you said, as travel nurses, you're in a new environment, you're with new coworkers, you're living in a new place. And so all of the things that give you a sense of who you are,
yes.
what do you do when that goes
You
away?
identify with that, like, the things that
Correct.
you can identify
Yes.
with are no longer there.
Yes.
So then
Yes.
what? What are you left with?
Right. Right. And that's where I think that it can be such a beautiful blessing, curse, challenge, wonderful experience, like it's the whole package, right? Of when you choose to sort of cross that threshold and say, I am going to go do this thing where I'm going to leave behind, we talked about this when we first spoke about leaving behind, the place we grew up, all the people we grew up around, our
Yeah,
home, our family, especially around the holidays as a traveler.
yeah,
I mean, because I remember working on units where, everybody's doing Secret Santa, or
yeah,
there's all this connection because these people have worked together for a long time. And there can be a way in which they're not excluding you intentionally. You just don't belong to them in that sense of, because you have this sort of short termness, right?
yeah.
And so you're sort of witnessing all of this, the architecture of longevity, right? Like what happens when you know someone for years, and then you're sort of a little bit on the outside of that. I think one of the beauties of it is when all of that stuff, falls away, when
Mhm.
everything, because in some ways, when you have a routine and you live in the same place, you work with the same people, it gives you a sense of self. But it can also, when everything that gives you a sense of identity falls away, you get to create a new one. It lends itself to the creation.
Like,
Yeah.
you just
Well,
have this way of finding positivity in everything, and I think that's so special.
thank you so much. And I also want to, like, one of the things I'm working on is kind of holding two things that can both be true, even though they seem like opposites. Part of why I lean into, all right, create something new, is because I have been so sad in those moments. Like, I've been in those moments and it has been so hard. And the feeling of, wow, everything I thought I was just fell away.
Yeah,
Now I'm alone, or I'm in a new city, or, that the sense of almost like desolation, this sense of
emptiness.
emptiness. Who am I? What does
Yeah,
it all mean? And I'm so I think from that, again, I feel like, and we all get those moments in life. Again, life presents us things.
yeah.
So we all get these moments of like, okay, this feels awful. I didn't know it would feel this way. I don't necessarily like this. And I think about this a lot with our patients in the hospital, because I have this phrase I say, I think no one's self concept changes as quickly as their diagnosis. A doctor walks into the room and, I'm thinking of a patient I had. You're a healthy 35-year-old woman who's a jogger, who has a 3-year-old who's going to Greece next month with her
Yeah.
family. And a doctor walks in and says, actually, you know what? You have bone marrow cancer and we're admitting you to the hospital.
Oh my god.
And and it's like
Yeah,
all of a sudden, your labs tell you who you are, right? And who
yeah,
you're not, and what your life is gonna look like. And I think that those moments of, and again, there's levels of it, but when we have an idea of who we are and how our life is gonna be, and
yeah,
something happens and we still have that idea, but then we have reality. And there's this friction between them,
yeah,
right? Of like, and I think those moments of, okay, I'm sad, or I'm alone, or I'm lonely, for me, what is sort of propels me forward, through them, not to avoid them, but okay, this is hard, but what's the next step? Is that sense of like, well, okay, everything that I thought was going to be just went up in smokes. Again, like leaning into that kind of almost childlike wonder of, well,
yeah,
what can I make out of this? What could be interesting, or what could be good, or what could be different? And obviously it's easier. Well, it's a different ball of wax when you're dealing with, like, we're talking about being travelers and changing, and we
yeah,
choose those versus a patient who's sick. But I see that in people too. There's a woman who, I read her book, who was diagnosed with cancer, and she journaled her way through her first treatments. And then she was on, I don't remember exactly if it was the chemo meds, but she couldn't see as well. So she couldn't
oh
write
my
anymore. So she started painting watercolor, and, and just that
oh,
I feel like that is, you know, that is such a fundamental thing of who we are as humans, that
yeah.
strange ability we have to sort of, okay, what can I try now? What can I do next?
That story just gives me the chills because that's
Yeah.
relatable, like, I'm in my 30s, and I have to have surgery, full disclosure, like,
Mm,
I don't wanna do it.
yeah.
What if I have
Yes.
this surgery and I lose function of my arm?
Yeah.
Anything can happen, we know that, so
Yeah.
that's, like, a fear that I have, so my
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
defense of that is, "I'm fine, I'm good,"
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but that wasn't that wasn't like a life-changing. I mean, it could be, but it wasn't as, like, severe as getting,
Yeah.
the diagnosis that you just explained, but I remember going to this appointment feeling like, "Okay, I got plans, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna like, this is what I gotta do," and the doctor sits me in a room, I'm by myself, and he tells me
Oh,
this,
man.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Well, n like, what else can I do?" And he literally said to me, I don't know why you're asking the questions you're asking. You should be asking me, how soon do I need the surgery? Not, do I
Yeah.
even need to have this surgery?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what? It's that serious? And like, just for that first time, I was a patient that got news that I didn't want to get.
Yeah.
And I was alone.
Oh.
And I remember
Yeah.
I remember leaving and getting on an elevator,
Yeah.
and it was on the 5th floor, and I just wanted to go to my car and cry.
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
didn't wanna cry there, and he even asked me, he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm not okay, but, like,
Yeah.
I gotta get outta here at this point."
Yeah.
And, like, I remember, like, riding the elevator down and, like, stopping at all these floors, hearing the, like, I don't know if they're nurses, but
Yeah.
hearing workers in the elevator
Yeah.
talking about, like, lunch stuff and, like, gossiping about something, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, "Okay, my life fell apart, and I don't wanna hear about what you had for lunch." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
like, annoyed, and it really was something that is, like, as crappy as that was, leaning into that fear, the experience I had on that elevator reminded me that you could be next to someone who just got the worst news of their life,
Yes.
and they could be alone. So it was kind of like a self-check of me too, being like, at work, I need to always be professional because you don't know
Yeah.
who's gonna be on that
Yeah.
elevator with you.
Yeah. I love that story. I mean, obviously, I'm sorry for the surgery, but
Tell me about.
that just sort of encapsulates everything we were talking about in that, you know, when your idea of who you are and how your
Mhm.
life is gonna be comes sort of falls away or gets
Yeah.
threatened or, this new information comes. And what I love is that it shows that that journey is difficult. It
Yeah.
is really difficult when life throws you curveballs and it's all the things, right? Like, what if I can't,
Yeah.
work? What if I can't? All the fears come up. But I love that you basically cross that bridge into compassion, because on the other side of that, you're like, oh, wow, this is what my patients feel like.
Yeah.
Now I know what it's like to be that person whose world has just been turned upside down
Be alone.
and
Like
be
that,
alone.
and that is
Yeah.
something that I never it made me think about a lot, you know,
Yeah.
like, and I guess you're right, I leaned into, like, how I can be a better nurse or be a
Yeah.
better person,
Yeah.
at the end of
Yeah.
the day. Like, we don't know, and that's something that I say all the time is, like, when you go out to dinner or you're just out with your
Yeah.
and someone's being mean to you, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, "You don't know my life. You
Yeah.
don't know if" like, it's just like, you don't know what someone else is going through,
Yeah.
and it's I always try to choose kindness. I
Yeah.
wasn't always that way, but
Yeah.
the things in life that happen, make you change how you behave and who you are. Your life
Yeah.
is ever changing.
There's another quote that I wish I had written down, but I didn't because I couldn't remember it until you just said this. When I first moved to New York, because it was a big, scary, overwhelming place. But one of my friends sent me a quote. I think it was Dr. Seuss, but it essentially said, if life gives you a chance, take it. If it changes you, let it.
Oh,
And that I feel like all of this kind of relates to the idea of, life is going to change us or at least give us opportunities to change, right? Where we are confronted with information we didn't have before, reactions. And it's so funny that the doctor being like, why are you asking me these questions? I feel like when I've had things and even just watching my mom or people I love, how do I say this? Resist medical information.
yeah,
And this was something I struggled with my mom a little bit in the beginning. Like, you know, do you know how to, these are the things we need to do. Why aren't you doing them? You're
yeah,
not doing them because you don't want this to be happening.
yeah, you don't
And
want this for your
you
life.
just don't want this for your life. Right.
Yeah,
And so maybe if I just pretend that it's not happening, it won't be. I had a lot of those moments of like, oh, this isn't my life. I don't want this to be my life. Why is this happening? I don't want this to be happening.
yeah,
But what can come on the other side of that again is like just a richness of when I'm around people who are having things happen that I don't want this to be happening. I don't want this to be my life. I feel like I can put on that part of my brain, right? Especially and even at work where you're like, okay, we're giving you all the medical advice and this is
Yeah.
what you need to do. And I understand why you're behaving in a way that doesn't fall neatly under the logic umbrella,
Yeah.
right? Because we
We're
don't
not
all,
logical when
we're
we're
not logical, right?
yeah, when we're
When it's
feeling.
us, when we're
Mhm.
feeling. So yeah, when it's uncomfortable, my way is to want to, oh, this is not pleasant. Let's stop doing this right now and go back to pleasant, right?
Yeah.
And so how like again the lean in of how can I be creative? How can I try to find joy even when this feels unbearable? Because ultimately, whether or not we like it, on the other side of something that's going to change your life, you will be changed.
I just have this, like, feeling, like, this gut
Yeah.
feeling that this year is going to something is going to happen in healthcare that is going to be a huge change.
I think that in some ways change is the new stable. I know that sounds
Yeah.
really weird, but like that constant change sort of feels like it's become the new norm. You
Yeah.
know, that
You're
sense
right.
of pivot. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so we're doing this now. Oh, pivot, oh, we're doing this now. It's just
Pivot, yeah. That
it,
was
I mean,
that was,
because
like, the word of the
that's
last
what it
5
feels
years.
like. Yeah, exactly. That's especially in healthcare.
A lot of people identify with nursing, like,
Hmm.
"Who are you?" "I'm a
Yeah.
nurse." But, like,
Yes.
and that is something I think even when I started this podcast, it's like, why are you a nurse?
Yeah.
And I don't have that, like, concrete thing.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I've never fully identified with, I'm a nurse." I
Yeah.
I am, but, like,
Yeah.
I have a huge passion for what I do. I think I'm good at what I do
Yeah.
and have the confidence behind that because 'cause I'm not an extremely confident person overall, but I know the type of nurse I am, but that's not just who Anne King is.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and that's changed, and that's because I lean into those uncomfortables that happen.
Yeah, because I think that the tighter you cling to this is who I am and it is right here and it is these 5 things or I am a nurse. Well, what happens if you can't be? Then who are you, right? I mean, and that I
Exactly.
think that the more you not you, but like the more we all
Yeah,
foster a sense of recognition that we are a lot of things, right? And I love when I see nurses do this, sort of bring themselves to work, not in a way of like I come to work and I am now a nurse and that means I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't
yeah,
do this, but just bring all of it, right? What
yeah,
what do you like to dance? I have one coworker, I love working with her. She is so goofy, but if she has like a confused, older patient,
yeah.
she'll sing to them.
Oh,
100%, she'll just sing to them, and
oh,
she'll even if it's like, "Hey, Gertrude, I've got your medications," like, she will
yeah.
sing, "I'm gonna take your vitals," like, and it's just it's
Oh,
such a beautiful way that she
really.
brings that kind of playful side
Yeah,
of her personality into work, as opposed to shutting that down and being like, "I am a nurse, and being a nurse means I am a serious professional, and being a serious professional means I will not sing to my patients," like,
yeah,
it's like, how can we bring more of that? And none of us get to keep our identity, our body, or this life, right? That there is an exit point for all of us. And I
yeah,
think that the more, and I just see this as I get older, that the more people cling to this is who I am and it cannot change and it must not change, that is not the planet we live on, right?
yeah,
That change is inevitable. And I think that this idea of knowing, being able to say, I love nursing. This is part of who I
yeah,
am. And if I'm not a nurse, Anne is still Anne,
yeah,
right? Laurel is still Laurel. There's a
yeah,
lot of ways that we can bring joy and the things that feed our love for nursing of, taking care of people or whatever those passions are. There are it's almost like a river, right? That like branches off into different tributaries.
yeah,
There are other places that stream can go, right? And so, and I think it makes it feel lighter to me than having to have this like, this is my identity. This will not change because change is coming at us all the time, but also change can come from within us. We can, and again, we can lean into that change and
yeah,
embrace it. And we were talking a little bit about before the episode, you having it's kind of a vision for your new year that's like going to be different than this last year. And a way of saying, you know what, I'm going to lean into,
and it's
change is
change.
inevitable.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, anything that is different than what you're doing on
that's
the
right.
day-to-day is change, so
Yeah,
it's not always scary. I mean, but
exactly.
it should be in a way. I do
Yeah,
think that if it doesn't challenge you, it's not worth it. You can't just live
yeah,
your life, being like, "Oh, I'm gonna take the easy way. I'm gonna do this," because you're not I'm sorry, but you're not gonna be fulfilled. You're not going to achieve everything that you're meant to achieve, and I think about, like, feedback I get from patients, just, like, from what you're saying with
yeah,
your friend at work that
yeah,
things people say to me, like, "Your personality got me through a hard day."
yes,
And that's something that I always preach to, new nurses. I'm like,
yeah,
"Know your stuff.
yeah,
If you don't know, you ask questions because
yeah,
we don't wanna lie and we don't wanna give
right,
bad
yeah,
advice. We don't wanna pretend. But, like, don't lose who you are."
yeah. That's
You
so
know?
important.
Because
Yeah,
that can be the change for someone's bad day. When the doctor tells them something bad or good, they
yeah,
don't understand.
yeah,
They just hear the words, and then it's our job as nurses to go in there and bridge that for them. And,
yeah,
if we go in stoic and cold and textbooky, that's
yeah,
not what our patients want. They want that
yeah,
warm comfort of like, "Hey, wait, this was actually good news. Like, we can celebrate this."
yeah,
Or,
yeah,
"Hey, listen, maybe make some phone calls.
yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah,
get your family here. Let's talk about
yeah,
this as a whole before you spiral down
yeah,
something that is not meant to be spiraled right now."
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. I shared in the last episode a moment with a woman who was watching her mom die,
Yeah.
right? While I was getting news that my mom was sick.
Yeah.
And, there are moments I feel like where it's a lot to feel and you can cut your heart off or you can shut down, you can get cold, you can be like, I'm a professional. I'm sorry that your mother is
Yeah.
terminal. Would you like any medication? I'll be back in an hour to check her vitals. You can
Yeah.
do that. When you said, the world is scary, I feel like trying to keep ourselves safe from things that are uncomfortable or scary actually just makes our world so much smaller. Because
Yes.
in that moment, you can also reach out and be like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I have a mom too. I'm so sorry this is happening." And it's a connection, right? It's a
Yeah.
bridge that you're connecting as a person, right? And then I also feel like when you're willing to be human with your patients, in some ways it opens them more to when you say, "Hey, listen, this is why we need to do this treatment plan, or this is what we're saying," because then you're not just this sort of like
Yeah.
authority figure who's, I have all the facts here. And, you're a person and they can feel that and they respond to that as well. So,
Yeah. I think
yeah,
that's, a great way to just give that everything we talked about. I mean, basically
yeah,
it was us just sharing our life, what we're dealing
yeah,
with, leaning into the change, leaning into the scary,
yeah,
learning from that,
yes.
growing, but at the end of the day, be a person. And
Just
I
be a
think
person.
I think that really just sums it up and,
Yeah,
bringing the compassion and, our own life experiences
yeah,
form who we are, and our life experiences could be the same or similar to someone else's that we're caring for, and it makes it real and human.
yeah.
And I just think that that's a good way to wrap it up and,
Yes.
tie the bow.
Bing.
As always, I appreciate you coming on here. I love our conversations. I hope you
Mm.
accidentally park in front of my house again, or
Right.
we all park in front of your house. I don't know how will
Yeah, yeah.
will
We'll
happen,
just
but
walk into the same grocery store,
yeah,
through the
yeah.
same door at yeah.
Oh my
So,
gosh, but
yeah.
I love it, and
Oh,
that's why the world works wonders in
it
mysterious
does.
ways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah.
thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me back. It's so
Yeah,
good to talk to you.
good to talk to you. Thank you for tuning in to Nursing Uncharted. You can learn more about this episode and our show on our website at amnhealthcare.com. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. You can also find show updates and nursing opportunities on our Instagram at AMN Nurse. Special thanks to AMN Healthcare for making this show possible.